Right, what we're making today is the butter knife. It's made out of sycamore. It's actually made out of a log to start with. You split the log in half, and then normally you would quarter it, but in this case we won't be doing that because we want the wider plank. So what we've done is we've cleaved off a flat off of there. So when we take it over to this horse and we use the draw knife to flatten it out, because what you get is when you split it off you get grain. So we want to take that out, and we want to take the width down so that obviously this butter knife is nothing like as thick as this piece of wood was. So you bring it over to this horse, very clever device, and you just use this draw knife to draw it off. You can control the depth by moving it up and down. So you take off small pieces to do that. Now people take a look at me and they say to me, why aren't you wearing a leather apron like those chaps in the photographs? Well, we believe that in a lot of cases those chaps are actually wearing the leather aprons simply to protect their clothing, not to protect themselves. Because if you bring that tool back to there, that's as far as it will go. It won't go any further because your arms won't let it. It is actually quite painful to try and pull it back any further. So it stops there. So as long as you're careful, what happens is though, you can do that. So sometimes the piece of wood will shoot out and that will hit your clothes. And you can wear quite a hole in your clothing. So we believe really that what they were doing was wearing leather to protect themselves. The idea is to work with it. You always find when you split this timber that you get what's called a wind, which is this diagonally at that end and that end a rise. So what you do is you just sort of work backwards and forwards until you can take the corners off and get it basically flat. Because the last thing you need is for your butter knife to be twisted. So that's getting close. We'll just take out some of the worst dents. But that now is complete. That's ready for marking out. We'll then take it over to the tool over there, which is called a stock knife, and we'll shape it with the stock knife. What we got here is a pine version of what I'm making. It's the blank, and all I do is mark round it, which is just place that on there, run a pencil round, actually sometimes I use the old ball pens because they mark the wood as well. These don't mark the wood so well, these pencils, but and there we are, 3 marked out. Yeah, so over to the block. Now this is called a throw. It's not sharp. The idea is it's got an edge to it, and it's what I used to split off the original blank off the log. And all you do is you apply that to there. Now I've just split that off, but it doesn't matter, I lost one. But you get most of the rubbish off with that, and then you go to the stock knife. This is the stock knife. It's used by clog makers for making clog blanks out of alder, but you can use it for all sorts of things. I mean, it's also called a pegging knife because people make tent pegs with it, but it's just basically a blade flat on the backside, cut in there, and you just use it simply like but you press down on it and you just go round the knife, the marks that you put on the wood, just follow it round. Try not to go over the line if you can help it, but if it doesn't go too far, it doesn't really matter. Well, there we are, almost done. The next bit is to use this small Swedish carving knife. And when I said earlier that it can give you blisters, the place it can give you blisters is in there and in there. So it's best to take it off with that if you can. Now this again, people may ask if you can cut yourself. Well, yes, if you're not careful, but you'll notice that if you look at it carefully, there's a gap in there, and I'm always working with that gap with my thumb against there. Although, like the old gardeners, you get a callus on your thumb and you really doesn't matter then too much. Really, it's just a case of carefully going round it. Now we go back to the shave horse, which is quite an interesting tool, because it does actually give me quite a bit of control. I can either use it, my feet are down on the pedal pushing hard, and the piece of wood won't come out. In fact, what's happening is it's pulling that out on there as well. It's quite a simple device, but I can control it because there's a groove in here, and I can put my piece of wood into there and I can hold it quite simply. It's a vice, but it's a vice with a slight difference. This is a small draw knife, which is a very neat little tool, but it gives me the ability to get down into the grooves, into the curves, so I can take small amounts off rather than necessarily using the knife, which is, I find, is a short range tool. You can get a longer curve on it with this tool. But so, having done that, I'm now faced with the fact that that's a bit thick, and I would then spend a few minutes with this tool, taking it down, tapering it down, and then I would end up with something like that. Now this isn't a finished one, it's still rough, and what would they then do is with a sheet of sandpaper laid on this, which is quite useful, you then spend 20 minutes or so. No, it's not that long, it takes about 5-10 minutes, and you take all the corners off and you get the surface flat, and it's ready for sale.